With Jalen Rose, I'm David Jacoby. We are Jalen and Jacoby. What is it that we do?
We get the people what they want.
The people want drama in the Eastern Conference standings. That's exactly what they have last night. The Miami Heat traveled to Boston to take on the Celtics. The Heat have been struggling lately, but they did not struggle late last night in the game when they got huge buckets from a lot of contributors. Lowry, Strus, Butler. Jalen, what sort of a message did Miami send last night in Boston?
So just think about what you did there, my brother. You acknowledge depth. So Pat Riley is about winning at all costs respectfully. And he's done it basically at each stage that he's been during his NBA career. And one of the things I noticed about the Miami Heat over the last couple of years, when the Heat made the finals, he was also paying attention to the other top players who were making an impact on other teams. So he's like, okay, PJ Tucker, Milwaukee Bucks, let's do this. Hey, Kyle Lowry, Toronto Raptors, let's do this. Morris from the Lakers, let's do this. Because he's gonna build within on the roster already. Hey, Duncan Robinson, take you from being undrafted to a rotation player with a big deal. You mentioned Strus, the same exact thing. He had a couple of big blocks late. He's playing terrific, playing quality minutes. And I didn't even talk about the productivity of their best players, Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, which is gonna make it matter the most. And the defensive end is where, in particular, they locked down the Celtics. Maybe the last, 4 or 5 minutes, Boston only scored 6 points. And Jason Tatum had 2 of those points. And so as we look at the Eastern Conference standings and as teams start to jockey for a position, you can't underestimate that the Miami Heat won the Eastern Conference with this basic core group of players and Eric Spoelstra on the sideline just 2 seasons ago.
I'm glad you brought up the Miami Heat's defense because the Celtics are known as one of the best defensive teams we've all heard since January. They've been the best team defensively in the league. But it was Miami last night who really locked up at the end, forcing Tatum and Brown to take tough shots like that one. In the playoffs, when the game slows down, will this be a recipe to sort of trouble the Boston Celtics offensively?
So I just want to make sure I acknowledge something for head coach Ime Udoka and the Boston Celtics, led by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And by the way, I'm glad people are now recognizing something I've said years ago, that Marcus Smart is actually their best passer. When you look at his body type and his defensive prowess and the toughness that he plays with, you underestimate the fact that he actually has soft hands. He made some really good passes in that game yesterday. But for the Boston Celtics, when you lose Robert Williams, that's your chance legitimately to win the East. And I know there's a chance he may come back in a few weeks, but I'm going to judge the Boston Celtics from the team I saw from January 1st until he got injured. And they catapulted themselves to be the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference before he went down. But obviously, without him, look at the top 3 teams. Bam Adebayo, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid. You ain't beating those teams without Robert Woods.
It will be very difficult to beat those teams without Robert Williams. And Mr. Rose, that was not the only exciting game we had in the nightcap. It was the Warriors who came out to play against the Phoenix Suns. This one was tight throughout the game, and it was the end of the game when old reliable Chris Paul, CP3, was getting the buckets for the Suns and get them a win.
And like I just did with Robert, if I call him Cliff, people are going to be like, oh, he didn't watch the game. So I just call him Chris Paul instead of his commercial name. How about that? But in all honesty, with Devin Booker struggling from the floor, Miguel Bridges playing good minutes, and Cam Johnson being out, this continues to be a thing that Monty Williams has done. And that's allow his young players to grow within the system. When you look at the Phoenix Suns, they did add depth at the 5 spot to go behind Ayton. However, the true growth within their team is their young players. I just mentioned two, Bridges, Jordan, Cameron Payne. You saw Crowder is going to give them an attitude, a level of toughness. He and Draymond Green were barking back and forth the entire game. But then what ends up happening is you turn it over to CP3 late. And that's been a recipe that wherever he's played, seemingly, they can rely on. But in particular in Phoenix, they've been the best closing team in basketball historically. In particular, when that guy has the ball. And let me tell you what's so very funny. You know, I always talk about the mid-range being a lost art in the NBA. And I'm also somebody that railed against using analytics as a tool, not necessarily one of the tools in the toolbox. And the league frowns upon mid-range shots. But if you notice something, the elite scorers that come to my mind, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, Chris Paul.
DeRozan.
You know where they play? DeMar DeRozan, you know where they play?
Mid-range.
In the mid-range. So if you go give me that space, I'm going to thump you and knock it down. And that's what Chris Paul continues to do on a nightly basis.
Yep, Giannis has really improved his mid-range game as well, and Chris Paul was flexing it last night against the Warriors. This team looks good. They look like the best team in basketball. They're clearly the best team in the Western Conference. But one thing that is worth noting from the Warriors side of the ball, Jordan Poole, former Michigan Wolverine, he has exploded this season. Last night he had 38 points, yes, in a loss, but with the development of him as another offensive weapon to go alongside Wiggins and the Splash Brothers and Draymond, can the elevation of Jordan Poole's game make them contenders in the playoffs?
I do, Jacoby, and right there, that was a crucial mistake that he made because he anticipated being double-teamed and being fouled by Devin Booker. But you got to actually, especially in the NBA, they have something called continuation. So you don't have to rush to get the shot up. You can take another bounce. You can take another step. They never call traveling in the NBA. Allow them to give you the contact, and then you get the shot off. But to answer your question, fellow Michigan Wolverine, absolutely. Improved ball handling, knockdown shooter. He got injured in college. That clearly affected his draft stock. But he got drafted to the perfect situation. One, that Klay Thompson has been injured the last 2 years, and he's gotten a chance to play quality minutes. Now Steph Curry is out. Who gonna create? Draymond Green does a terrific job of initiating offense and dribble handoffs and passing when somebody's open and screen-to-screener type action, but he ain't between the legs behind the back getting you a bucket. That's what Jordan Poole is able to do from unlimited range, and he's an improved guy that can finish at the basket. So absolutely, when Steph returns, Jordan Poole now plays a key role. And think about it. Andrew Wiggins was a starter in this year's All-Star game.
It's wild.
Andrew Wiggins was a starter in this year's All-Star game. Ain't really seen him since. Ain't really seen him since. And so, yes, I believe with the improvement of Kuminga as his rookie season continues to impress, I believe that when they're healthy, the Golden State Warriors have still a puncher's chance of championship-laden veterans and Steve Kerr as their head coach to not only nudge the Phoenix Suns, but obviously be that second team along with the Memphis Grizzlies to see who they play in the Western Conference Finals.
The key is if healthy. Klay Thompson wasn't himself last night. Steph Curry's in street clothes. Wiseman doesn't look like he's coming back. If they can get two of those three back and going, they have a puncher's chance, as you mentioned. Seems like we always have big news this offseason in the NFL, and yesterday was no different. Out of absolutely nowhere, Bruce Arians is no longer going to be the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He is going to the front office. That man, Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator, is now the head coach of the Buccaneers. Obviously, all roads lead back to the GOAT, Tom Brady. How do you think this affects Tom Brady's upcoming season?
A few things. So Bruce Arians steps down, and Todd Bowles now becomes the Bucs head coach. You know what I truly appreciate? that didn't get leaked. That didn't get leaked. You didn't see nobody saying, hey, when Tom Brady returned, Bruce Arians may step down and allow Todd Bowles to be the coach. That was never said. So I appreciate Bruce Arians for being what I like to call an ally. And it's one thing to go by your words and your post. It's another thing when I look at your staff. And you have the most diverse staff that I've seen in the history of the Super Bowl. And now Tom Brady returns. And yeah, he and Tom Brady may or may not have the best relationship. Maybe there were some things that needed to get ironed out that helped this transition. But clearly, this is something that is a reward for him because he got upgraded job position to the front office. Todd Bowles got a 5-year deal, not a 3-year deal, not a 4-year deal. And so this is permanent beyond Tom Brady is what I see here. And I really appreciate him circumventing the Rooney Rule, indirectly circumventing the Rooney Rule. And now we have a major grand total of 4 black coaches in a league where 70% of the players are black. And since the Rooney Rule got instituted, Jacoby, there have been like 150 hirings. Maybe 15 of them have gone to black candidates. So I'm happy for Todd Bowles, who I've got a chance to spend time with when he was the coach of the Jets. I think he's going to do a good job. It doesn't seem like a charity case because he earned it, and he's been a head coach, and I believe, as I mentioned, that he's ready for this opportunity coaching the GOAT. But I will say, Bruce Arians, big shout for being an ally.
Absolutely, and it's nice to see the defensive coordinator, Todd Bowles, become the head coach because you would think that Byron Leftwich would be considered as the offensive coordinator because you have Tom Brady and all those weapons on offense, but it almost felt like they're like, we know our offense is going to be good. We've got the GOAT. We've got Byron Leftwich there. Let's shore up the defense by making our defensive coordinator the head coach. Congratulations, Mr. Bowles, and I think this makes the Buccaneers actually better next season. Jalen Rose, the Memphis Grizzlies, just keep winning games without Ja Morant. It's absolutely insane. They've won over 90% of their games without their best player. We'll celebrate them right after this. You're watching Jalen and Jacoby. Coming to you live above the Heineken River Deck here, the Seaport, New York City. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen Rose. Once again, the Grizzlies took the floor without their superstar, Ja Morant, and once again, they came away with the victory last night. It was a close one against the Spurs, where, without Ja, the Grizzlies improved their record to 19-2. How do they continue to do this?
Improving each year. 2 years ago, they didn't make the playoffs, but Ja won Rookie of the Year. Last year, they were an 8th seed, a part of the play-in. This year, they're firmly entrenched as the number 2 seed. And you do that by having a superstar, but also having a great team that can perform when he isn't healthy. Jaren Jackson Jr. deserves consideration for Defensive Player of the Year. My killer bees, Dylan Brooks, along with Bane, locking down defensively, making shots, making plays, Melton coming in, but also Tyus Jones in this game played really well. And so as I look at the landscape of the Western Conference, they're a legit contender, Jacoby. And when I think about Coach of the Year, Monty Williams, who's run away with the best record, and Taylor Jenkins, who has a 19-2 record without Ja Morant, those are the 2 choices I'm waffling as it relates to Coach of the Year.
It's going to be a very stressful voting day for you when it comes to the awards at the end of the season. And when I was looking up who should be Coach of the Year, I was reminded that last year the Coach of the Year, Tom Thibodeau. God, the Knicks are trash. When you look at the Western Conference playoff picture, you see that the number 2 spot is occupied by the Grizzlies, but at the very bottom of that playoff picture are the Lakers, the Spurs, and the Pelicans. The Pelicans took action last night in Portland. CJ McCollum returned home. He was celebrated, and the Pelicans got the win.
I appreciate the changing of the guard. And shout to CJ McCollum, one of my favorite people in the NBA. He's going to reinvent himself with the Pelicans, not only on the floor but in the community. Did some great things in Portland. And he's a classic example of a guy that should have got a tribute video. Let me just throw that out there. But for the changing of the guard in the league, and you and I talked about this, How about the fact that LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant aren't in the MVP conversation? Dame Lillard hasn't played all year, and Pop's coaching a team that's barely a part of the plan. It shows you how the young players in the league, and Kawhi Leonard hasn't really played this season. And so now all of a sudden you have these very young players who have now taken their games to another level. It's great to see. Shout to CJ again. Big 9 years with the Blazers.
Well, one of the youngest players in the NBA, Jose Alvarado, did something that he's been doing all season very sneakily and quietly. Look at him in the corner there. Comes up, grabs the ball. He pretended he was part of the bench and came up and grabbed the ball. He's actually done this a few times. Jalen, have you ever seen something like this before in the NBA?
I have not, and I love it so very much. It's the definition of hustle. That's what that is. That's hustle. And deception. Like, he's running really fast. You know
He's always in the corner, but he's in his own bench.
Why don't more people do that? Right? You think, like, why don't more people do that? Well, you got to be running really fast in order to catch up with the person and light on your toes. I like that very much, Jacoby.
I just like it because he always goes by his bench, where out of the peripheral vision of the players on the floor, it just looks like he's another bench player standing up there. It has worked over and over again, but something tells me after last night he won't be able to pull this off anymore. Jalen, it is time for one of our signature segments. It is time for Soft Move or Boss Move. Huge game this weekend in New Orleans. Duke, UNC playing for the first time in the tournament in the Final Four. Duke and UNC fans are so excited about this one, but one UNC fan, Eric Church, a very popular country artist, canceled a concert, disappointing thousands of fans and people that work at the venue because he and his family want to watch UNC Duke. Soft move or boss move, canceling a concert, disappointing your fans because you want to see the Tar Heels.
I can't play sports forever, but as long as he can stand on the stage, he can do shows forever. He don't even have to be able to sing the songs in his 70s, 80s, and 90s. All he got to do is just have them playing, and he can lip sync them. This is just going to help his value because we're talking about him on this show, and they're going to be showing him at his game. It's a boss move, and so now they're going to be showing him at the game. And his value just increased. So I ain't mad at him at all.
Well, I just want to say that I love hip hop, and a lot of people forget that I'm white, but I am not just white. I'm so white that I dabble in some country. And Eric Church has some bangers out there. So I support Eric Church, and anything that's going to get us talking about him on Jalen Jacoby has got to be a boss move. Jalen Rose, you identified something that's very important. LeBron James, while leading the league in points per game scoring, still needs to play 3 more games to be eligible for the scoring title. Something tells me he's going to hit that quota. We'll talk about Rose. I can't believe we are still doing this. We once promised that every day we'll recognize Brittany Griner, who is still being detained in Russia, and here we are.
One day is too long when the term is detained. 42 is way too long to be in Russia. So we just want to send well wishes and prayers to her and her family, and hopefully a safe recovery to the United States soon.
Now, Jalen, LeBron James twisted his ankle. He is not going to play against the Jazz this evening. However, you recognize the fact that while he is leading in points per game in the NBA, in order to be eligible for the scoring title, he needs to play 3 more games. And look at how tight this race is between these 3. Jalen, do you think he's just going to pack it in for the year and not go for the scoring title? Or perhaps he'll hit that quota?
He's not going to be able to do it. No, he ain't packing it in. At this point of his career, at this age, with this many years, he deserves the opportunity to go for the scoring title. So much so, I'm going to pick the games that he's going to pick to actually play. Let me see who played. Wow, definitely playing against the Thunder.
Yep, that's at home.
Definitely playing against them last game of the season.
Definitely playing against the Thunder, yep.
Definitely playing against the Lakers because Joker's going to be playing 5 and he's going to have a chance to play good offense against them.
The Nuggets, yep.
And definitely playing against the, no, that's the back-to-back. I would say he's going to play against the Nuggets. Oh, man.
It's tough.
All
I don't
right,
think he'll be ready for
Pelicans.
the Pelicans. You think it's Nuggets, Thunder,
All right,
Nuggets?
so here we go. I got you. He gonna play against the Nuggets, the Suns, and the Thunder.
That's it. Nuggets, Suns,
Those
Thunder.
are the 3 games.
You heard it here first on Jalen Jacoby. So here's my question is, how many shots is he going to take? Like, what number does he put on the board I need to get to in order to secure this for these 3 games?
How much does he average?
30.
That's how many shots he gonna take. Remember I told you that.
Yeah, he's not.
30
He's
shots
gonna.
a game. Why not?
Don't let them to be down by 20 or up by 20 and Frank Vogel try to take him out when he's got 25 points, because that is not going to happen. He will not go to that scorer's table. He's going to get to 35 points in all of these games, one way or the other. Remember, we heard it first. Jalen Jacoby. Those are the 3 games that LeBron James will pick to play to secure the scoring title at his advanced age. We will, as always, be back tomorrow with another Jalen Jacoby on ESPN2 at 4 p.m. every single day.
Appreciate the love.